Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Chia, and since I posted a few months ago all the books that I've ever rated 5 stars, I decided to do another video where I talk about books that were nearly 5 stars. They were nearly 5 stars perfect to me, but there was just something missing from them, some sort of like thing that I was really, I think, like being nitpicky about that was lacking from this book. These books were probably rated 4.5 stars for me. I don't think I've ever rated a book that's like 4.75, because if I was to rate it at 4.75, at least in my brain, it should just be a 5 stars. I don't like, having to go by quarters. But anyways, grab a cold drink, grab something refreshing because it's super hot outside right now. I wish I had a tasty, refreshing drink right now, but unfortunately I only have water. But anyways, let's get started with the video. So the books I'm going to talk about in this video are just going to be various genres. There's going to be some sci-fi in here, some fantasy books. You've probably seen a lot of these like featured in some other videos I posted in like the past like couple years ever since I started my YouTube channel. But anyways, the first book I want to talk about is from a beloved series of mine. It's the first book in the Red Rising series, and it's Red Rising by Pierce Brown. If you don't know, this book is a sci-fi book where the whole entire world is cast into colored tier systems. Our main character Daryl is a part of the lowest tier, which is the red tier. They're made to be the laborers. He is a hill diver, and he is meant to mine Mars to have like sort of, I think it's like helium they're mining or something for the higher tier, which is the golds. But then tragedy strikes, and unfortunately he finds out some stuff that the golds have sort of been lying to them about, and so he doesn't agree with it, obviously, because his tier has been like working the hardest to help the golds they're never thought of by the golds. So he ends up joining a rebellion, and it goes on from there. But in this first book, it's more a Lord of the Flies combination with sort of like intergalactic kind of deal. I loved the characters in this book, but the thing that like kind of was difficult for me in here is that I just didn't connect to our characters whatsoever. I just thought like kind of Daryl was a little bit arrogant, and I just didn't see a lot of character development from him. And I saw the found family forming, but it was kind of jarring a bit because of the things that happened while they were in this like academic setting. So when Daryl joins the rebellion, he ends up getting turned into a gold so that he can be like as tall as the golds. I think the golds are like 7 or 8 feet tall or something. They're the strongest. They're the hardest to kill. So he ends up attending this academy where all the golds go in, and so they have to basically live this Lord of the Flies like simulation where they go out in the fields and form alliances and form factions and stuff like that, and are meant to kind of like survive on their own for a good while and find ways to do it. And some of the ways that our characters find to survive is very gruesome because of the way they savagely kind of like attack some of these people and everything. So I didn't really connect to that. Judging from the first book and after reading the rest of the series, well, up to book 3, I didn't know what this whole entire series was going to be about. I was kind of confused because I thought like I heard a lot of like intergalactic things about it, but when I picked up the first book, I didn't see where they were going to be going all over space. But as you pick up more and more of the books, the more you see about this intergalactic war that is happening, and it's just crazy how in-depth these characters become, the amazing found family you end up forming in this, and all the lessons you read and also experience through the eyes of our main characters. I love the characters in this book, especially one of our side characters, Several. He's a psychopath, but he's one of those charming, hilarious psychopaths that you can't just help but love. I suggest when people start reading the series that you should read past book 1, because in truth this one is a little bit more less developed writing by Pierce Brown. As you go into Golden Sun after reading this one, you see the vast improvement. You see the vast improvement of the characters, the plot, the writing, everything. So I highly recommend that if you didn't really particularly like mesh with the writing in this book or the characters or any of the plot, I suggest moving on to the next book, because this one doesn't reflect the whole entire series at all. In fact, it's like the worst one, I believe, in the whole entire series so far. I haven't read the rest of the series yet. I am waiting till Red God has a release date, and then I'll read the rest of the series. All that to say, this one was a 4.5 stars for me, but not quite perfect because of the cons that I said. Everything just gets better. It's just one of those series where the books just keep getting better. If you haven't picked up the series yet, but you're hesitant because of the stuff that you've heard from the first book, don't let that be the determining factor of the rest of the series. I promise you might fall in love in Golden Sun, especially with all the stuff that happens in Golden Sun. It's such a good mixture. And if you do audiobooks, I highly recommend the graphic audios. The graphic audios are amazing. I recommend both, whichever your preference. And the next book is The Book of Azrael by Ambervina Cole. This is going to be part of a 7-book series. This is the first book. In case you don't know, we are in a world where there's like a bunch of supernatural different characters in here who live so many years. They're like centuries old. We follow a character named Diana. She is an Igmorthan, which is basically shapeshifter, and so she is meant to be the biggest, greatest enemy of the god king Samkiel, and he's meant to basically unalive all the Igmorthans, and he finds out that Diana is back. He kind of was in self-isolation because of a war that happened centuries ago that broke him really badly, and he lost a lot of people. We also see them end up like forming an alliance because the person that Diana kind of works for, named Caden. Caden is trying to find the Book of Azrael, which has the ability to unlock all these portals to these different realms, and you don't want them to have that because it would kind of turn the tides in their favor. So Diana and Samkiel, even though they're enemies, kind of form an alliance so that they can go against Caden, and she's the morally gray one. I absolutely love her, but the reason why I didn't give this one a 5 stars is because some of the pacing was really off for me. I felt that once certain things started going and the plan started going into motion in the middle of the book, we had a lot of lull in the middle of it, and I kind of got like bored. It was such high action. I loved the lore that we were getting like introduced to in the beginning of the book. I loved the characters we were getting introduced to and the feel of the whole entire world and story. But then as soon as we got to the part of like the chunk of the plot, it just started slowing down because Diana and Samkiel kind of like started getting to know each other, and it was a little bit draggy at that point. But once we got to the end, the action started again, and then some things happened that ended in a cliffhanger that made me want to jump to the next book. And so the next book, like, I absolutely love. Highly implore you to pick up the series, but just be prepared that it is a dark fantasy. It's a lot darker than like most other fantasies if you're not used to that kind of genre, but this is more tame compared to other darker fantasies out there that I've read. So yeah, that's the reason why I couldn't give this like a 5 stars, but it was almost there. If the pacing had been better in the middle of it, I would have given it 5 stars, but I did end up giving the second book a 5 stars. And then the next book is the first book in a series that I absolutely think is so highly underrated, which is The Road of Bones by Demi Winters. This is the first book in the Ashen series. It is set in a Viking like world. It's Viking lore, Viking fantasy. There's different names of like Viking gods in here. We follow a character named Scylla who unfortunately is living in a world. Why did it get so dark? Anyways, the lighting like changed a lot. I think the sun disappeared, but yeah, the sun disappeared behind a cloud. As I was saying, this follows a character named Scylla, and she lives in a world where if you have magic, you get unalived by like the powers that be, the higher ups, all of that, the kingdom, whatever. They have to keep moving a lot because of certain things, and so they have to leave this night. So in order for her to survive, she is told by her dad before he gets unalived to go find the Road of Bones, and as she travels the Road of Bones, she will find a shelter at the end of it to be like, you know, in a safe house or whatever. While she's traveling on the Road of Bones, is very like dangerous. She needs to protect herself. She kind of like finds a way to sneak on this wagon. Then unbeknownst to her, she finds out that it's owned by like the most notorious assassin group called the Blood Axe Crew. A lot of these characters have really harrowing backstories. I absolutely love this book, but again, the pacing in the middle of it just got really slow. Because once we formed an alliance with different people and then we started traveling around the Road of Bones, it tends to happen with a lot of traveling books where you just meet this lull where it's just a lot of repetitiveness over and over and over, because then you travel, you fight some things, and then you rest for the night. But once it gets towards like the end where you start finding more and more lore and you have all these like shocking twists, a lot of things happen with the characters that like kind of like shocked me at the end because of how they came about. So I absolutely love the series. It does get better as the books go on. I absolutely love the second book, but this one just wasn't there for me. And also, I didn't really like the romance in here. I felt like it was just too insta-lust for me, so I just couldn't get down with the romance. I love the series. I highly recommend you to pick it up. I think once I got to the end of the second book, I said in my like past reviews and like last year's wrap-ups and stuff that it was the closest feeling I've ever had to reading the Throne of Glass series. So if that like entices you, please pick this up. This whole entire series is so underrated. It has 3 books out right now plus 1 novella. It's going to be 5-book series. The 3rd book just came out in February, so it's perfect time for you to catch up, and I will scream from the rooftop that this book series needs more attention and needs more hype. It's one of the better written series out there, better written found family, and also it's a multi-POV fantasy if that's what you're into as well. Next book is a literary fiction. It's Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. I love this book so much. It's the only book I've ever read by Frederick Bachman. I love that this was my introduction to his writing. It's so in-depth the way he writes. It basically starts off with a bank robbery, and then you find this bank robber trying to run away. The bank robber is not the best bank robber in the world. So what ends up happening is that they end up trying to run away to go to this like supposed empty apartment because the door is just open. But the bank robber ends up finding out that there's sort of like an open house going on with this apartment. And then it ends up becoming a hostage situation, and it's hilarious. This book is hilarious because there's like interspersed interviews from the hostages in this book when they're talking to the policemen, and they are so ridiculous to the point where it doesn't seem real at all, and they're true characters. And I love the concept that is explored in this book about like the different connections you have with people. Some of these people are kind of connected in various ways, and the theory of 6 degrees of separation, that you're never too far connected from another person. There's like explorations of depression, anxiety, and there's like a roundabout way that Frederick Bachman writes in this book that it takes forever for him to get to a point, but when it gets to the point, you're just in an aha moment with him. The reason why this wasn't a 5 stars for me is because of the ending. I just couldn't get down with the ending because I was expecting a different ending with the way everything was getting built up, and I just felt like the ending was kind of anticlimactic. I felt like it just didn't meet how much we went roundabout of everything, and I kind of came away from the ending a little bit underwhelmed. And also some of the points where I said that he was going roundabout his points just went on a little bit too long for my liking. So that's the reason why I couldn't give it a 5 stars, but highly recommend nonetheless. Next is Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. This starts off with a character named Odessa. She lost her mom at a young age, and she's the daughter of the king. And so he ends up remarrying, ends up having more kids, and so her younger sister is meant to be betrothed to another prince from another kingdom. They have this whole entire treaty where a princess from their kingdom, or a prince whatever, marries off to the prince or princess from another kingdom, and that's a treaty to like help benefit all of the people who are part of this treaty. And so the prince from the foreign kingdom comes to visit his bride, but he ends up choosing Odessa for his bride instead, and it goes on from there. I just couldn't give it a 5 stars because of the pacing in this book. There is so much journey in this book, and in all honesty, it was sitting at a 4 stars for the longest time, but the ending ended up bumping it to a 4.5 for me. And also, I didn't like our female main character that much. I just felt like she asked too many questions. We're in her POV the whole time. She asked a lot of questions in her head, like paragraphs and paragraphs of questions. I love the monsters, but I just felt like there was a lot of repetitiveness about fighting these monsters. So we would get introduced to a really unique monster, and then we'd have to fight them like for a long time of the chapter. And I read the second book, and in all honesty, that one was rated so much lower too, so I don't know if I'm going to end up liking this whole entire series. So I don't know how this will go, but we shall see once the 3rd book comes out. It's supposed to be just a trilogy, and the 3rd book's going to come out, I think, March of next year. Next is Firebound by Sable Sorensen. This follows a character named Marin. She is a part of the slums, and her sister unfortunately gets kidnapped, and the only way to rescue her sister is to join the front lines. And during the year she ends up joining the military, a bonding trial is set to happen. So a bonding trial is where you go up to like the top of the mountain, and a direwolf is meant to choose you, but she doesn't want to be chosen by a direwolf. She doesn't like the bonded. She thinks they're pretentious, and then they're overprivileged, and she doesn't feel like she would fit in with them, and she doesn't like any of them. But another direwolf has other plans. So this book, like, I loved the kind of like direwolf concept of it. It's not very unique. It's kind of like similar to Fourth Wing in the way the people bond with their dragons compared to bonding with their direwolf. Sort of similar that way. But other than that, I feel like this one's a little bit more different. The way they have to bond not with only their direwolf but also with the rest of their faction they get, you know, assigned to is also part of it too, because they have to be united when they're fighting with their faction. So she has to learn how to be a part of a team, especially since a lot of these people she didn't really particularly particular like have the best opinions about because she thinks they were overprivileged. And the reason why it was less than a 5 stars for me is because of the romance. I hate the nickname Kitten, and the guy called her Kitten the whole entire time. Every single time he called her that, I cringed so badly. It was one of the worst like nicknames given to a female character ever, and I've read a lot of bad nicknames, but I do like the world in this, and I do like the direwolves in this. I liked a certain character named Stark. I felt like he wasn't introduced enough in this book, but I understand why. It's a lot more similar to Spark of the Everflame, the Kindred's Curse series. I do recommend this if you're just looking for a fun, good time, but if you're expecting something super unique, I wouldn't really recommend it. But I do like the world, and as I said, the direwolves in this, and I think we need more direwolves featured in a lot of fantasy books. And also, our female character kind of annoyed me a lot. She reminded me a lot of DM from Spark of the Everflame. DM really pissed me off in the Kindred's Curse series, and some of the choices that Marion makes is very similar to a lot of the things that pissed me off about DM. That's the reason why, again, I couldn't give it a 5 stars. Next is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I love the whimsy in this book. I love the portrayal of circuses. We follow a night circus, and there's like a bunch of whimsical characters who attend this circus. We kind of start from the conception of this circus. We kind of like jump around different like timelines. We don't not only follow the people who attend this circus, but we also follow the people who help the circus come to life, and also the people who are in the exterior where they hear about the circus and want to attend. And I love how magical and whimsical everything is in the circus. And also on the back of the book, it talks about this love story between Celia and Marco, and how their love story kind of plays out in the middle of the circus, but it's not completely about them. Like I said, it's about the night circus. The whimsy in here, the beautiful like writing in here, it makes me remember why I love fantasy so much. There's not really a sort of like concrete magic system in here. There's not really a clear explanation of how these characters use magic to rival against each other. And also, I love the characters to meet in here. The only reason I couldn't give this a 5 star, again, it's because it was such an anticlimactic ending. The way the whole entire problem was solved in this book, with everything that like, you know, the situations that we were coming across, it just felt so underwhelming with how it ended and how everything was resolved. I just feel like I was expecting a different ending, like similar to Anxious People. So I highly recommend this. I highly recommend also reading this during like fall season and winter season. There's a point in here where like it kind of centers towards the end, like a Halloween night where people come, and then there's like a special magic that happens during like the Halloween time in this book. I love it. If I could visit this circus during Halloween time, I would. I still recommend, but it just wasn't a perfect 5 star for me. Next is the third book in the Gods and Monsters series by Ambervina Cole, called The Dawn of the Cursed Queen. I told you that I gave the second book in the series a 5 star, and I absolutely love that one because of the character development we had, especially after the cliffhanger from the first book. This one I also went in straight into with like high expectations because the second book was so good for me, that there was so much development that I wanted from there that happened, as well as emotional trauma like exploration. I love the kind of relationship we had with our main characters, but this one, like, we went straight into this with a kind of big thing that happened in the second book. With this, I just felt like we were experiencing a sort of small miscommunication thing that was happened between our FMC and our MMC that I felt like we did get honed down in the second book, because they talked so much about communicating with each other. That was the most important thing that was happening in their relationship, and that's why I loved it so much. And for it to start off like that, with the way things happen in the second book, I just felt like they were supposed to be past that by now, but that was just my opinion, so that's why I couldn't give this a 5 star. And also, the plot kind of like got really confusing at the end, that I still haven't picked up the fourth book, and I don't know how they're gonna go about this certain plot that was introduced. From hearing from like the reviews and stuff from the fourth book, I think it's just one of those series that I feel like is dragging on a little bit too long. I haven't read the fourth book, so we shall see how I feel about that. I just feel like it's just introducing a lot of plot in here that I just feel is venturing way off from the way it was introduced from the first and second book. But we shall see how it goes on, and that's the reason why this wasn't a perfect 5 star. Next is The Wolf King, one of my favorite books from last year. It follows a character named Aurora. She's a princess from a foreign kingdom, and their biggest enemies are the wolf shifters. She has to attend this like fighting ring where they imprison these wolf shifters and make them fight in this imprison ring. And in there, she eyes like this alpha wolf shifter who is like in charge of this clan or whatever. Trust me, when I came into this book, I was sort of rolling my eyes for the first bit. I was like, wolf shifters? I don't know about that. I'm not really into that. And then I continued on with the story, and I got so addicted. I don't know what Lauren Perel Freeman put in this book, but it's so addicting. The reason why I couldn't give it 5 stars is because of the romance. It's a love triangle, and the kind of romance that we follow in here is just not the romance that I kind of want for our female main character. There's another character in here that I love more that gets sort of a more centered point in the second book. That's why the second book got a 5 star for me. But yeah, I didn't like the romance as much in this, and I felt like the relationship could have been developed a little bit more, especially with like all the insta love and lust that happened. So we shall see how the series go on. We're supposed to get the 3rd book in November, but it got postponed to next year. I think it's November of next year. So it not only got delayed because it got traditionally published, but now the 3rd one is pushed forward to the next year. We shall see how that ends up, but I don't mind her taking her time because I would love a perfect ending for this series. So we shall see, but this was not a perfect one, but it was still so good nonetheless. Next is a very recent read of mine, which is The Will of the Many by James Islington. This was a very intimidating book for me to go into. I heard about the complex magic system and the combination of like the Roman politics, and also the font is tiny. Like, that hurts my eyes just looking at it, so I didn't know if I would like it. But I heard so many good things. One of my good friends, she read it and she loved it, and she said my mind was gonna be blown by the ending, and my mind was blown from the ending. In case you don't know, this follows a character named Viz. He is an orphan, and so he gets adopted by one of the people who is higher up in the hierarchy. In this magic system, it's like divided into different pyramids. The lowest of the low people are like sort of in the bottom, and they have this thing called the will, where it's sort of like a life force, and the lower you are on the bottom of the pyramid, the more will you give to the higher ups in this pyramid. And you see like where this person who adopts Viz is like literally one of the highest up in that pyramid. He's of high political standing. He wants to adopt Viz because he wants him to attend this academy where there's a mystery that he wants him to find out the answer to. So Viz ends up getting trained and all that stuff, and he spends a lot of time, like maybe the first 200 pages, just getting trained before we're even in the academy setting. He has to learn all this stuff about the hierarchy since he hasn't been like, you know, being a part of it over the past few years, but he does know about it. And there's also a secret he has going on where he sort of has an ulterior motive on top of everything else that's happening with his adoption and the mystery that he has to solve. I love the whole entire like fun family we start forming in the academy, and it's a very slow paced book. There are some like big things that happen with the action and stuff, but otherwise it's very slow paced. The reason why I couldn't give it a 5 stars is because I found we had no connection to our male main character. I just felt like a lot of things that he went through was just kind of really easy for him to get through, especially with like all the high stakes he was going through and all that stuff. So I don't know how I will go on with the second book, and I'm crossing my fingers and I'm hoping that I connect to a lot of the other characters more. I think it's going to be multi-POV, I want to say, in Strength of the Few. I don't know if I misheard that. We shall see. But if this book intimidates you, it's actually really easy to get into, and then the writing is very simple to get into. So just go into it slow, and you don't have to understand it right away. But I love this book. It's one of the best I've read this year, but it still wasn't a perfect 5 star. Next is another lit fic. It's The Wedding People by Alison Espatch. This is so perfect to read during summertime. We follow a character named Phoebe. She unfortunately goes to the Cornwall Hotel to unalive herself. But when she gets checked in, she finds that there's like a wedding happening during the whole entire week, and she runs into the bride, and she ends up confessing to the bride why she's here, because the bride asks her why she's here since this whole entire hotel is supposed to be booked for all of her wedding party and her family and all that stuff. Phoebe confesses to her why she's there, and the bride takes it upon herself to get her to not unalive herself because it would ruin her wedding. And I absolutely love this book. I thought we had so much good character development in here, and it was surprisingly very funny. It's very dark comedy, which I love. I love dark comedy, but if it's not your forte, I wouldn't go into this because there's a lot of like, you know, jokes made about like dark stuff that happens in this book, or especially since Phoebe is there to unalive herself because she's in deep depression. The reason why I couldn't give it a 5 stars is because there are certain points where the comedy just gets a little bit too ridiculous. There is one point where the bachelorette party happens, and it's like the typical bachelorette party like antics. I felt like it just didn't fit the scene, as well as there's this one scene with a guy in a car. Yeah, that just kind of knocked it down for me, those like little instances, but otherwise I feel like this is such a good summer book. If you want a heartwarming like lit fic that's filled with like good humor with a little bit of dark comedy in there, I feel like they would be up your alley. Another book is sort of like a magical realism historical fiction kind of book. It's called The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. This book follows a character named June Farrow, where she's a part of this family where unfortunately the women in her family are cursed with this affliction where they kind of start going crazy later on in their life. They start seeing things that are not there. Unfortunately, at the beginning of the book, she loses her grandma, and that's literally the only family she has left. One day after her grandma passes away, she gets a letter in the mail with a picture and an address and something on the back of the picture where it just says, "Trust me." So she goes to the address and she finds this sort of like house, and she finds this red door, and it just goes on from there. I loved how heartwarming this book was. I felt that the magical realism was done so well in here, and the way you find out like the different mysteries and why the woman in her family gets these afflictions, it's so crazy. And there's also a mystery that you're trying to solve in this too, because there's sort of like a murder mystery kind of happening. I love the way the murder mystery kind of unravels in this book, and also there's like a tiny little love story in here too, and it's done so well. I love the writing in this book. It's written so good. I loved the whole entire family aspect of it and the whole examination of like the female friendships and also female relationships that she comes across. I loved it so much. The only reason why I couldn't give it a 5 stars is because of the ending. I just felt like the ending was wrapped up a little bit too quickly with how the build-up was. The explanation of some of the magical realism stuff in here at the end of the book just kind of was confusing to me. It just didn't make sense, but I guess it wasn't supposed to make sense because like there's a lot of aspects in here where it deals with, okay, I'm not going to say it because that's kind of a spoiler, but the way it handled the whole magical realism part at the end of the book just was a little bit confusing. It just didn't feel concrete to me, and that's the reason why. But I highly recommend. It's so good. Next is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I love the historical fiction in this. It's a historical fiction based fantasy. It follows a character who is from China, and he gets adopted by this Englishman who is a professor. I want to say, is he a professor or a businessman, something like that. So he gets taken away, and it's in the middle of like when his family unfortunately passes away from cholera. He's from Canton. When he gets adopted, he gets taken to London where he's like basically forced to become a scholar. He needs to attend the university in Oxford where there's a little university there called Babel where he's supposed to help use language to imbue the silver, and that's how they use magic in this system. They are being used for the way they are fluent in their different languages, and they're the minorities, and they're treated so badly, especially for the importance that they have in this university. And it just talks about the biases that people have, as well as the discrimination and racism against like all the different people. And he found sort of like a found family with the other people who attend this like university. They're the adoptees of these like rich white men who kind of make them feel like they owe the people who adopt them because of taking them out of their respective homes. They're just treated so badly in this book. Like, it explores colonization and how it benefits one party more than the other. This was my first introduction into R.F. Kuang's work, and I loved her writing. The only reason why it wasn't 5 stars is because of like, I wish I had more connection with the characters, especially since like there was so much deep topics that I kind of relate to because I am an immigrant myself, and a lot of these characters are immigrants. They were taken away from their home to be forced to do the bidding of the people who adopt them. But I just didn't feel connected to the main character. And also, despite the whole entire deep thing that they have connections with each other, like the cohorts that our main character had, I just felt like it just was a surface level relationship to me, and I just didn't feel like they really cared about each other. But that's the reason why. Next is Raelia by Lynette Noni. This is a part of the Mandoran Chronicles. It's the second book. The first book is called Akane. This book is very similar to how Harry Potter is, where they go off to a magical school, but this one is more fairy based rather than like, you know, wand-based magic system. And there's like a sentient library, and we follow a character named Alex who is supposed to go to this boarding school because her parents are traveling for work. They don't want her like traveling all over the place. They want her to have stability in her school and everything. So she goes to this sort of boarding school, but when she attends this school, she ends up inadvertently falling into this magical portal that ends up taking her to Akane, which is the magical school that she attends. And this is the second book. I loved the ending of this book. I thought the found family is amazing. It's sort of like the same similar trio where it's like 1 girl, 2 boys, and she finds the 2 boys in this, and they're very, very kind to her. This is very, very lower YA. It's more bordering middle grade, but I found that I love the world so much and it reminded me why I fell in love with fantasy in the first place. The reason why I couldn't give it a 5 stars because of the dialogue that it was in this book. It's so lower YA that it's hard for me sometimes to get over it, but the ending was crazy that I didn't expect, and I love the world, and I can't wait to continue on with the third book. Well, eventually, hopefully sometime this year, because I really do want to finish a series. It's a finished series, it's a 5-book series, and I just love it for the way the characters in the world is portrayed. Next is The Rose Bargain. I love The Rose Bargain so much. If you like Bridgerton and also the Cruel Fae from the Cruel Prince series, as well as the fairy tale writing in Once Upon a Broken Heart, you would love this book. I love the female friendships in this book. This follows a character named Ivy. It's her season now to be put into society so that she can find a husband, and she unfortunately has to clean up her family name because I think a couple seasons ago her sister, it was her season, and unfortunately there was like a controversy that happened during her season, so now she takes it upon herself to clean up her family name. They're ruled by this queen who is a fae, and this queen announces that her son is going to join the marriage market, and there's sort of like a bachelorette type competition, and she implores like the young girls to come, you know, vie for the hand of her son. And so of course Ivy wants to clean up her family name, so she goes and vies for his hand. There's so much that happens in this book that I absolutely love. There's like different POVs from the other women who attend like the bachelorette type competition too, and I loved how they strengthened their female friendships instead of like being catty towards each other as usual, like how other female friendships are portrayed, especially if it's in a competition. But I love that they all became friends and protected each other, so I highly recommend. The reason why I couldn't give it 5 stars is because there's some instances here where the filming character just kind of acted impulsively, and also I found that the love story was a little bit lacking depth, but it got better as the book went on. So I absolutely loved the series, and it's a finished duology, and I already read the second book. I didn't like the second book as much as I liked the first one. I highly recommend it nonetheless. Next book I want to talk about is All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This is the first book in the Murderbot Diaries. It's a bunch of like novellas following one character who is a robot. He's said to be a Murderbot robot. He protects like these people that he gets assigned to, and they are in this like planet trying to figure out this mystery of what's happening with this sort of like scientific thing that's happening. And he's supposed to be a mindless robot. He is very sentient. All he wants to do is just go home and watch his favorite series on his like, you know, heads-up display. That's all he wants to do after all these missions are done. I love how humorous this book is. The reason why I couldn't give it a 5 stars is because it's pretty short. I very rarely give any high ratings to novellas. I just think like they need to give me a longer page count and also a more in-depth story for me to give a 5 stars to. But I loved it nonetheless, and I can't wait to continue on with the series. And I think that series is like adapted on Apple now that I would eventually want to watch as well. Next book is one of my favorite gothic fantasy series currently, and the first book is Phantasma. This book follows a character named Ophelia, and she is a part of a family of necromancers. And so her younger sister Genevieve ends up attending this like thing called the Phantasma, where it's a trial-based thing where they can win a prize at the end if you read Caraval. It's like a dark version of that. It's very demon-based, hell-based, and there's like different levels of it that you have to go through. I love the trials in this book as well as the love story. I just thought the ending was a little bit too out of pocket for me. Things got revealed I just didn't like. I love this story. I love the whole entire like trial-based of it and how dark the trials are and how it's very unique, and I was surprised with how much I fell in love with this book because of how dark it is, as well as spicy. It's very spicy. Like pretty much almost every other chapter there's a spicy scene, and it's also crazy because the main character is a phantom. And it's funny that our necromancer is in love with a phantom. But I highly recommend the series, especially if you're looking for a fun gothic fantasy that's a lot different from other fantasies that we've read. And if you like your fantasies a little bit spicier, you would like this series. I still highly like this a lot more than our second book, which follows the younger sister, which is Enchantra, because I like the trials more in this book and I love the whole entire plot more. Like I said, the ending, I just didn't like the revelations we got, and also the way things wrapped up with our main character. just wasn't like it for me. So that's why it wasn't a 5 stars, but it's highly recommended nonetheless. Next is a sort of like fall seasonal read, I guess you could say. It's called If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. This book was such a huge surprise for me last year. I heard about this book constantly at once it released, how it's a 90s rom-com kind of feel, where it's like sort of Gilmore Girls, but if you take Gilmore Girls and set it in the 90s, and there's sort of like a 90s comedies that you get, and all the TV shows, the sitcoms, the rom-coms, whatever. If you love your 90s comedy and 90s rom-coms, you would love this book and the seasonal feeling of it and how pretty and gorgeous the cover is. There's a second book coming out by Julie Olivia. I think it's another fall themed one. I'm not too sure if it's going to be set in this world or not. I hope it is, or I hope she comes out with more books in this world. It's so good. I love the heartwarming characters in here. It follows a character named, I forget her name. Her name is Michelle. We don't really see Michelle anymore as a name for like main characters. I see them mainly in like 90s rom-coms and sitcoms. It follows a character named Michelle. Unfortunately, at the beginning of the book, she loses her mom. And so her mom and dad runs a B&B in, what is this place called? Copper Run, Vermont. And her sister is set to take it over because it was left to her. But unfortunately, her sister still has like a semester left to graduate college. And so Michelle ends up taking up the mantle to go take over the B&B while her sister's finishing school. And she's supposed to leave at the end of like the year to go back to her, I think she's a publisher, I forget what she is. Oh no, she's a marketing agent, there you go. And while she's there, she has a neighbor named Cliff, and of course Cliff is like one of the golden retriever, friendly, super helpful next door neighbor, and they're all a part of this small town. I love the characters we meet in here. I love the wholesomeness in this book, especially if you're looking for a wholesome romance. The only thing that like stopped it from being a 5 stars is because of the ending, and there was like a little bit of a spicing in here that I just didn't think was well done. But I loved everything nonetheless, and I loved the whole entire aspect of Cliff being a girl dad and how he has a teenager as well as a 5-year-old, and how different he approaches both of them and the different seasons you go through as well. Highly recommend reading this during fall time. And also it's like kind of a little bit longer than most rom-coms we know, but it's so well done. Like every single kind of chapter or chunk of chapters follows, I guess you could say, an episode. That's what it feels like you're watching a sitcom happening. It's so good. And the next is Dustbound by Greenwich and Lenage. This is a part of the Sprithian trilogy. The first book is called Riftborn. This is one of those cases where I did not like the first book at all. I thought the first book was so boring. The romance was terrible. I did not like our FMC. She was so one-dimensional. Oh my gosh. The way it ended, I knew I had to jump into the second book. This was so good. This improved everything. The writing was better. The plot was better. The romance was so much better. Our female main character like developed a lot. I love the unique magic system in this, where it deals with more like celestial magic and dark shadow magic. I loved it so much, and I do need to reread this because the third book is supposed to come out next year. I don't know if I like could have given this a 5 stars because I just wanted more connection to our female main character. Our male main character was towards the end. I just feel like he was a little bit getting too possessive at the end. He really annoyed me. That's why I took away that 0.5 stars, just because of that. And then the last book that was almost perfect 5 stars but wasn't was The Bright Years by Sarah Damoth. I expected to give this book a 5 stars. I was feeling the 5 stars feeling majority of the book. If you don't know, this follows 2 characters named Ryan and Lillian Bright. They are a married couple. They meet in college, I want to say, and they get married like shortly thereafter. It goes from like their courting and then also as well as their first years of marriage, and also talking about having kids together, and they end up having a daughter. But unfortunately, they have secrets from each other. Ryan has sort of a alcohol addiction, which stems from the fact that his dad had an alcohol addiction, and Lillian has a son that she gave up for adoption when she was 18 that she never told Ryan about. So of course it shows how these kind of secrets and these like problems that you hide from your significant other or your spouse will start breaking down a relationship over the time. And I loved the way this was portrayed, the way that it was like multi-POV, multi-generational, how all these secrets will not only affect the couple but also it affected their child as well. I love that the different POVs that we got in this book, it just felt so different from each POV, that we felt their personality and we felt their kind of view of the world as well as the things that they felt during the stuff that happens in this book. And there's also a sort of like I don't know if I want to say plot twist, I guess. Well, it was shocking for me when I found that out. It happened in the middle of the book, and oh my god, it was so shocking, but it felt like it added so much depth to the story, and how it also got a POV from Ryan where it didn't fully like excuse what he did. It just gave you an insight into his mind while these things were happening, while he was being an alcoholic, and how these people like loved him, but they couldn't really necessarily be around him at all anymore because they need to set boundaries for their mental health and everything, and how it affected them growing up. And sometimes the people you loved, because they can't help themselves, you have to set a boundary. I love the lessons that were set in this book. It gave so much character development within a not even 300 pages. This book has less than 270 pages. That's crazy. 265 I think it is. But the reason why I couldn't give it a 5 stars, it's just that, I don't know, like at points there were good things that were happening in this book and good lessons that I was reading, yet there were just some points where it just slowed down and it just kind of lingered too long in certain moments where I just felt like the pacing would be off. Especially during the points when we would be in Lillian's point of view and we were watching her watch her daughter grow up. And also just the 5 stars feeling wasn't there. Sometimes you just don't feel the 5 stars feeling, and that's okay. So that was my thoughts on The Bright Years. But that's it, friends. That is all the books that I thought was like so close to being a 5 stars. Just wasn't there for me, unfortunately, that I wish there was a little bit like more tweaking in different parts that I personally found that I just couldn't like give 5 stars to. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you made it this far, let me know in the comments below if there was any books that you almost gave 5 stars to but was just lacking a certain thing that you were hoping to have. If you want more videos like this, like and subscribe. It really does help my channel a lot, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!